Three, two, one. And we're live. Are we live? I think we're live. I hope we're live. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, Fabulites. This is Angela with another edition. Oh, no, with a reaction to a film that I saw at the Cinetopia Film Festival called The Blackness Project. And oh no, I was going to tell you, I think you can get it on Scoville TV if you would like to see it. I think it's called Scoville TV. Hold on one second. But I'm just going to do a quick reaction recap to Scoville TV. I'm going to do a quick reaction. Dang, I'm misspelling it. Something's not right. Did you mean Skyview? No, maybe it's Scoville. Excuse me for one second. I just want to be able to send you to the right place if you want to see it. And I think that you should see it. Has anybody seen Whiteness Project? I never saw the Whiteness Project. So the first thing about this film is it's called Scoville TV. Skovu TV. And you can go there to watch it if you use the code Cinetopia, Cinetopia. I think you get 30 days free. So go check it out and watch the Blackness Project. I didn't really get to watch it real good because I was in and out and working, and the people at it was work. It was just work as a volunteer, just work. But I do have some notes. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you my notes. And then after the film The Blackness Project, there was a panel. Hey, welcome on the chat. Thanks for the like. There was a panel of different filmmakers, and I think I have the demographics of the filmmakers because I thought it was really interesting, and the moderator and everything. I thought that the panel was going to be a panel about the Blackness Project, but it was called This is America, Filmmakers in America or something. I don't know. They were all relatively young. That was interesting. So let me see. Let's jump right into my notes. I'm Angela, and the channel is Be Fabulous You. Like, share, comment, subscribe, and all of those other wonderful things. We crossed 500. Whoop, whoop. So exciting. I'm gonna do a giveaway. I think I'm gonna do a giveaway. I think I'm gonna do like incense, and yeah, probably incense, because that's like everybody can use incense. I even had a cousin who used to buy incense from me, and she used to put them in the plants in her house because she really didn't want to burn them. And she really didn't want to burn them. She just wanted like a softly diffused scent, like aromatherapy in that sense, not like, I like to burn an incense, but you don't so you could get the incense if you win the giveaway, and you could just put them around your house. Oh, I know somebody who used to put incense on their dashboard on their car. Peace, Papa Chris. So yeah, I'm gonna do a giveaway. I'll make a video announcing it, but since I already had the since I already had the since I already had my notes for this, I'm like, let me just go ahead and finish it. There were two other films that I saw that I do want to talk about. I don't have notes for them, so I'm going to have to do that really soon too. But let us jump right in. Oh, it's not, it's an email. Let me jump right into my notes and my thoughts on the Blackness Project. When I first, like this year, I really didn't get a chance to. Cinetopia is a film festival that comes to Detroit and Ann Arbor. It usually lasts about a week. It starts like one weekend in Ann Arbor, then it continues throughout the week, and then the last weekend is in Detroit. And that's usually how the films are basically organized. So there are like the DIA, the Charles Wright Museum, the Arab American Museum, the Henry Ford 3D music. Theater. I think they show films. Hey, so there are like probably 7 or 8 venues just in Detroit. I know, thrice. Ooh, another good word. Thrice in one day. I'm not throwing rice. Thrice. So there are like 7 or 8 venues. Cinema Detroit, which is I call the Art House. They show films. So there are like a lot of films that come to this region in a short period of time. A lot of them are films that were seen at other film festivals. Most of them are not going to get mass distribution. A couple of the films that I saw do have some type of mass distribution deal. Last year they were showing I Am Not Your Negro, but it had already been in theaters by the time they showed it. But when they booked it for the festival, they didn't know it was going to get a distribution deal. Blah 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 blah. I think that's how it went. So it's a whole bunch of films. Usually I will sign up to volunteer. I've only done it 3 years. The last 2 years I always volunteer at the Charles Wright Museum. Yeah, I always I'm not even going to talk about why, but I always volunteer at the Charles Wright Museum. And initially when I got involved with Cinetopia, it was so that I saw, oh, if you volunteer, you see a film free. I'm like, okay, cool. The first year I saw about 10 films because as a volunteer, once the film starts, the supervisors are like, oh, just go on in the movies. So movies that I didn't even want to see, that I hadn't even signed up to see, I saw. A lot of the films were very, very good. The last two couple years, I've been a supervisor. So when the movie starts and I'm telling everybody else, oh, go on in and watch the movie, I'm sitting outside doing my report. And so then I really get a little frustrated to go in and see the movie because I'm like, I can't see the whole movie. I can't get the full effect. And even if I go in and watch the movie, if something happens, I'm in and out, in and out, in and out. So I should watch the Blackness Project. That's all to say that I need to watch the Blackness Project on Scoville TV. So maybe that's what I should do. And go on and Scoville, I think it's like it's two young black men who did it, so I probably need to sign up anyway. But let me go through my notes. So I didn't see the Whiteness Project. This was some reaction to the Whiteness Project. The Whiteness Project seemed to be, the impression I got is a film where a bunch of white people were interviewed and they talked about how upsetting and difficult it is to be white and how they're abused and how their life is terrible. I don't know if that's exactly, I didn't see it, but that's just kind of the impression that you got. And so I think that the filmmaker was kind of like feeling some kind of way. And so he decided to make the Blackness Project to get some perspective from, black folks. I'm not necessarily a fan of reaction videos, but reaction films and stuff like that. Although I did enjoy the work overall. I thought it was pretty well done. He's relatively young, so I liked. Never heard of the Whiteness Project. Yeah, and one thing that I liked about the film, the Blackness Project, is that I felt like I really didn't feel motivated to see the Whiteness Project. He had some footage from the Whiteness Project. He had some footage from like Gail King interviewing some people from the Whiteness Project. So you got a sense of what the project was. You got a sense of it being established as a relatively major project. If it was on the morning talk show with Gail King or whatever, like it ain't just no backroom project. It was like somebody's big project that none of us heard of, but it got some currency, some watch time or whatever. So that's one thing I liked about the film, that I didn't feel like, oh, I need to go see the Whiteness Project, because I really don't want to, so I wouldn't have anyway. But I feel like it kind of brought you up to speed. So one of the first, I'm just going to go through my notes. It may not be the most coherent, but this is how I do my reaction videos, just my notes. So the one person was talking about their frustration, and she's like, I'm frustrated because it's the same conversation that we've been having since I was a child, and I'm 64. And I just feel like it's the same conversation that we've been having for 2, 3, 400 years. Really, really, sister, it's official. I'm gonna burn my food in a good way, right? Like put your foot in it in a good way, burn like that. Um, so that like I appreciated that statement, and I appreciate that frustration. And I feel like the reason that we've been having the same conversation for 50 years, 60 years, 100 years, 400 years is because of who we're having the conversation with. And sometimes it's not really a conversation. I remember, I've said this just the other day, but I remember as a student talking to some of the administrators at the college that I was at and saying, look, we need to have more black students. We need to have black professors, blah, 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 blah. And they were like, oh my God, you're so smart. And I was like, I know I'm so smart. I just thought of this all by myself. And then I went and I looked through the archives, and 25 years ago, women were having the same conversation with people in the administration. Peace, fam. Hey. Okay. It's in a good way. Got it smelling musty. Oh, musty, like, burning the food. So, you know, so when I look through the archives, I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm not anybody special. I ain't come up with nothing new. It's obvious. That's why they having the same conversation. We have the same conversation now they were having 25 years ago, and literally one of the same administrators who was in the minutes as being in attendance at that meeting was in attendance at that meeting. There's no motivation for them to change things, so they willing to have the conversation and just continue to do what they're doing. So that's why we keep having the same conversations. Smelling good country talk. I don't know what that means, but smelling good country talk, girl. We was smelling good. We was having country talk. You know what I mean? I don't know what you mean. Um, she talked about there was a white woman. I think this was a woman who had been interviewed in the Whiteness Project, and she was like, well, white black men are attractive, and so when I see black men, I smile at them. And my mama coming back home from the hospital. Yay! Congratulations. Yep. Prayers out for continued health and progress for mama. Mama of COG. Um, she's like, when I see black men, I smile at them because they're just attractive creatures. I feel like she might have even used the term creatures, but don't quote me on it. But it was something that kind of like when she said it, I kind of felt away like, huh? And then she went on to say, just because I'm smiling at you is not an invitation to approach. And I'm a very full figured woman. This is a white woman. And she just, so basically her thing is like she smiles because they're attractive. They, i.e., black men, spaghetti and meatballs with broccoli and cheese. And then they just approach her and they're all over her. And so she doesn't like them. That's what she was saying. I guess that was her interview from the Whiteness Project. Shouldn't we get away from defining ourselves by skin color? That's what an interviewer is asking some people of the Whiteness Project, or one of the people being interviewed is asking the person who did the Whiteness Project. And the guy from the Whiteness Project is like, no, it's like a core part of our identity. And it's like, I think as white people, his point is that even if you don't acknowledge it, even if it's unsaid, it's a central core part of every conversation and every interaction that you have with someone who is not white. That's there. And it's definitely, I feel like as black folks in this country, your identity as a black or a brown person is constantly thrown up in it's constantly there. That's how I feel, when I'm dealing with, I don't know if it's necessarily constantly there when I'm just kicking it with black folks, but I feel like when I'm dealing with white folks, it's there, it's there, it's there. And I feel like I don't want to, I don't believe this whole oh, all I see is people. I'm like, that is some bullshit. I don't believe that. I never believe that when people say that. I feel like that's a daggone lie. That's a lie. You lie. You lie. You can see that I'm brown. Don't fake the funk. That's some bull. I don't believe that. So, I can't stand when people, oh, why does color matter? Because that's part of my culture. That's part of my identity. That's part of my history. I'm proud of my color. I think it's beautiful and fabulous and wonderful. I love melanin. I love the sun. All of that. That's part of who I am. So yes, I do see it. And I feel like it's important. It's important to me. So don't try to ignore who I am. Um, Born colored. So there was one person, I don't have his monologue or what he said, but he was like, when I was born colored. By the time I went to elementary school, I was probably Negro, and then I was dang, he said something else. I have colored written down, but I think it was another term. And then by the time I got so and so, I was Afro American, and then I was African American, and then I was black. The way he said it and everything was really clever. Then there was one person who's like, I am not African American. I'm black. I ain't never been to no Africa. I've been in America, and we did more to build this country than anyone. But I don't feel American. I don't feel connected to this country. So this idea of alienation, if we're black folks in America or African folks in America, and we don't feel connected to America, and we don't feel connected to Africa, and different people feel different ways, but just that sense of alienation and that sense of not belonging and that sense of wandering, I felt like that statement did a good job of capturing, kind of like that sense of rootlessness or something that many of us feel. Calling me black, this is someone else. Calling me black is dehumanizing. I have a nation, I'm American, black is a color that doesn't give me any identity, any connection to, a landmass. I'm American. He said calling me black is like calling me Joe and my name is Brian or whatever his name was. He feel like it's offensive. And I thought that whole little conversation about what people like to be called was very interesting because I feel like whenever I'm around a group of folks, we all have an opinion about what we like to be called. I don't feel comfortable in America myself. That's why I'm going to Africa next month. What part of Africa are you going to? Is this your first trip to Al Kibalan? Or what parts, what countries, what regions? Um, so, I just thought it was interesting, and I think that's a good point. I feel like many more of us need to spend time, in places other than this, so that we can, connect to other people. And yes, North Africa. Okay, my mother spent a little bit of time in Morocco, so that we can feel more connected to, our African selves and to other people in the world and see more of the patterns you get. Like I found that I have gotten a whole different perspective by traveling of this country and my experience here, and I can put it in a broader context. And I also feel like I feel less attached. Maybe in some ways I feel more attached, but I think in general I feel less attached to this country because I've traveled. That's just how it has worked for me, and I'm grateful for it. Um, Race is a social construct, so there was like a whole conversation about that I really enjoyed. Industry is what we typically think about when we think about slavery. We think of the enslaved, we think of cotton, but ship making, insurance, it was a 245-year industry, and it lasted so long because it produced profits. It was an industry. It was business, it was about money. And I felt like that was an important point. This one man, he was like, the country had a choice. They could stand with the patriots or stand with the traitors. And that's what my mother is forever saying. She like, those people who were the Confederates were traitors. So why are they like all big up in the traitors instead of, putting them down? When somebody try to jack your stuff up, why are you going to celebrate them and invite them back in? And then they continue to try to jack the country up. So anyway, this person was like the country had a choice. They could stand with the patriots, or I don't know why my thing just did that. Fought for money, not just for emancipation. I don't think it was fought for emancipation at all. I feel like we were a secondary issue in the larger issue of power, and the brothers fighting among themselves, the rich white men with property and power fighting among themselves for more property and power and more wealth. um, so the country had a choice after the Civil War. They could stand with the patriots or they could stand with the traitors. And at the end of the Civil War, with no remorse, and remorse is a powerful word, they stood with the traitors. And the traitors were not remorseful. They were not sorry. They did not apologize and say, I did something wrong. I feel bad about it. It was fought to keep slavery in the South. No, not exactly. I think there was like I'm not really like a good historian, but I've read it. I think that it was more about power dynamics. Like there was a constant battle about when states came into the United States or whatever it was called at that time, were they going to be slave or free, and who was going to have more money, the people, I mean more power to vote in Congress and to make decisions, the people in the South or the people in the North. And so certain things like the system of enslavement kept the people in the South wealthy in a certain way, or the white people, and I use people loosely, in a wealthy in a certain way. And so that was a way to like kind of undermine their power. The Emancipation Proclamation was sort of like a last ditch effort, to try to get them in line. I don't think that was those people had they were enslaving. Right. It was about money. It wasn't about no us. The white people in the North didn't care about us. And they don't care about us. They care about their money. um okay, I don't know why this keeps scrolling back. Um older folks look at the youth and are like, why don't you understand the struggle? And this person is like, well, it's not their struggle, they're not connected to slavery and Jim Crow. And I was like, huh? I thought that was a weird statement, but I think that the filmmaker did a good job of, sometimes when you have a collection of interviews, it's not just a matter of doing the interviews, it's a matter of what part of the interview you use and what order you use the interviews. And he had other footage. He had footage of, right, we were the money in slavery. We were they money. So he had footage from Malcolm X. He had different footage from different people. So I feel like editorially, what he decided to put where, how he decided to organize it, I really appreciated. And I felt like, even though he was a relatively young person, I felt like he had a strong perspective and a strong voice in how he put stuff together. Because after that statement where I was like, huh? Yes, we do still have a connection with the enslavement of African folks in this country, and the enslavement and exploitation of Black folks continues to this day and to this moment. And all, like it's not over. That's not long ago back then. That's right now. He says, shouldn't, oh, wait, okay, so I'm back at the beginning again. So then he had other people who came after him based on their interviews or footage or whatever that seemed to respond to that particular person's perspective, which I appreciated. While our ancestors were in the field being beat, their ancestors were inside getting an education. That's what one woman said. Some person talked about an unbroken chain. Oh, I think they were talking about Dr. Ben's statement saying that there's an unbroken chain from slavery to white feelings of superiority and Black feelings of victimhood. And I think that that's important when we do notes on the news and when we talk about, like this, like desire, this ongoing desire to, teach Black people how to be slaves or talk about enslavement. And when we talk about the enslavement of Africans, what we want to do is we want to tie you up and beat you because that's what we call an education. There's something like about that like links them to their feelings of superiority. It was like, I guess, their finest moment in history, so they want to keep replaying it and keep repeating it. And keep that vibration of victimhood going in us, of feeling like we're less than, we were dominated, we were not dominated, we are not dominated, we have not lost, we have never been losers. We ain't never gonna be losers. So that was an interesting statement. They chose to keep white folks on top of the economic ladder. That was the same person who was like, at the end of the Civil War, the country had a choice and the country chose to go with the traders. They chose to be like, as y'all say, stay on code. They chose to like honor their brotherhood with each other above and beyond humanity and, doing the right thing. And so they wanted to keep white people on the top of the economic ladder, and they've continued to implement policies, formal and informal, that support that hierarchy. Um, Last name denotes the ownership by the enslaver. There was an interviewer asking Malcolm X about his last name, and he like, well, that ain't my last name. I don't know my last name. And well, what about your grandfather's last name or your dad's last name? That's the interviewer asking him. And Malcolm X is like, I didn't know. And he did it better than me, but it was just like, it just really reminded me. I enjoyed seeing him, and it always reminds me of how sharp he is and how on point he is, and just his analytical, critical, like he was just quick. He was quick. He was swift. He was smart. He was, and maybe it wasn't even really a sophisticated question. He probably could have anticipated that and been prepared for it. It probably wasn't nothing, but, I just enjoyed seeing how he handled that situation. Um, Traveling while Black, this person talked about having to use the back roads. You had to know how to use a map because there was no service for black folks on the internet. I mean, on the interstate. He said if you were on the interstate and you ran out of gas, you would still be in that interstate to this day. Your skeletons would be sitting out there because nobody would have helped you because they would have said you should have known better than to have your black behind on the interstate. And he talked about the training of the children and the drilling into the children of how to behave, and how, like, when his mother and father would travel, the mother would stay out in the car, the father would go in the store, the children would have to stand at position tall and erect where the store owner could see them with their hands where it was facing so that everybody could see that they weren't touching anything, they weren't stealing anything. The children would come in one at a time, tell their father what they wanted, then their father would go and fetch it with the children standing there where the store owners could see it, and then put it on the counter, and then that child would leave and go out to the car where the mama was, and the next child would leave. I never heard, it was just an interesting thing, but it was like this anxiety, this stress about not having anybody be able to say that your children came in there and they were running wild and they were stealing and they were loud and they were out of control. They drilled them, according to this person, in terms of how to behave in public. Now, I think there's definitely that idea of respectability politics and our experience of that in terms of being respectable, speaking well, carrying yourself in a certain way, demonstrating by your behavior that you're valuable, that you're a good person, that you're a good Negro. I think that that's definitely, I've seen evidence of that and, had that experience. But his specific description of traveling, it's kind of like that's the first time I've heard that. So I thought that was really interesting. Um, Back to the last name denoting the ownership by the enslaver. I guess I've heard that, and for some reason I've never thought about it in the context of women, because I think of the last name, people can you can look at it as like denoting your ownership by your father, and then your father gives you away to your husband, and then now you take his last name, or he gives you his last name, so then that denotes his ownership of you. Love the organization of interviews and the clips and the speakers and everything. I liked how the chapters were organized. I didn't get to see all of the passed down since slavery, right? That's why Malcolm X is like, I ain't telling you my daddy's last name or my granddaddy's last name, because that wasn't their last name, that was the slave master's name, the person who enslaved the people who enslaved them, who owned them. I ain't getting into this conversation with you, white man interviewer, white person. So I love the organ. I don't know why I keep scrolling away. I love the, or probably because this is an email. Usually I do it in a Word doc. So I love, they had like different chapter titles, like slavery. I didn't get to see all of them because I was in and out. And in each scene, there was like a shot at the beginning of each chapter. There was like a shot of a radio, but the radio moved to different places. So it might be in a restaurant, it might be on a basketball court. I love that. Like, I felt like it made me feel like there was a coherence to the film, and like the filmmaker had thought about things, and it made it feel beautiful and polished. I enjoyed that. And I like the voice from the radio talking. My maternal grandfather had an indigenous surname. Um, so that was cool. 1963 Civil Rights Address. I don't know what that is. And I just took these notes yesterday. They won't snitch, the cops. They're saying that the cop, somebody was talking about how the cops go out there and they evilment, and they won't tell on each other. They won't snitch. And somebody's like, sounds like a gang to me. There was a panel of 6 that followed the film. And there was a moderator. So one of the filmmakers, a black man, Kasim from Detroit or from Ann Arbor, was talking about the public lynchings are traumatic, in terms of seeing these videos of black people, black men, being shot and abused is traumatic. He don't like it. He not here for him. It don't make him feel good. Um, we have to talk to folks different from us. It's like we're preaching to the choir, or is it? I don't know. I think that whole like multiculturalism propaganda, like this idea that we have to talk to white folks and together we can solve it. I feel like I don't know if I believe that necessarily. Like, I don't have any problem talking to anybody, but I don't feel like my focus or my agenda or my work or our solution to this issue comes through talking to white folks. Like, I feel like my solution, my answer is with black folks and in the black community. And I feel like, there's this idea, this concept that, it's not true that a small group of people working together can't change the world. In fact, the only thing that ever has changed the world is a small group of people working together. So I feel like, you get with the people who we see stuff the same, we working on the same stuff, we can have some impact. If I'm constantly spending my time trying to convince somebody of something or educate, I ain't got time to do that. I'm not going to do that. So I think that, we don't have to. I'm not saying you just never talk to anybody who's different from you, but I don't feel like that's my focus or my agenda. So I'm not going to do that. And I guess my notes must have gotten, truncated. I realized that there was some duplication. So I had deleted at one point, but I don't know. But so on the panel, I had it written down. So what was really interesting to me is it made me think of Chrissy and her videos where she talks about like the erasure of Black women. So there was one woman on the panel who the reason that previous movements were, so the visually looking at the panel, I was really fascinated because there were three women who were like basically all the same skin tone. There was one Black woman who was like dark skin or dark brown skin. There were three Black men and they were all dark skin or dark brown skin. There was no light skinned man on the panel. So that was really interesting to me. Again, it reminded me of Chrissy's conversation. One of the women on the panel who was racially ambiguous to me, and they were all three the same skin tone. She called herself biracial. So I guess she has one parent who identifies as Black and one who identifies as Black. The other two women who were the same color as her, like skin tone, looking at the panel, you could look, they were all the same skin tone. One was Sri Lankan. She was half Sri Lankan and half British, I guess. She had a British accent, but I think I do remember her saying she was part Sri Lankan. And I remember these twins who were like, I think they were Sri Lankan. They were like on Survivor or something like that. And they were not as dark as me, but they were pretty dark. But this woman was pretty light, but I couldn't. And then the last woman, at first I thought maybe she was white, but I was like, well, maybe she's Southeast Asian. And she said, I think that she was Indian. So like they were all three, and at one point they were talking about women and stuff like that, and the dark skinned woman said, well, as a dark skinned woman who's 5'8", when I walk into a room, some people feel intimidated and some people want me to shrink, but I'm not shrinking. And if you feel intimidated, that's your problem. I can't, I'm not going to unblackify myself. I'm not going to shrink down and try to be shorter. And then also she said she dresses, people are like, always, why are you so dressed up? She's like, because I'm a queen and I come from Queens, because that's what I do. That's how I like to do it. What, you think I'm going to dampen myself because you feel uncomfortable? No, I'm fabulous because I want to be fabulous. So anyway, so she said that about being a dark skinned woman, and she was visibly like all of the men and her were one color and then the women were another color other than that one Black woman. And so then some of the other women were like, yeah, as a dark woman. And it's kind of like, I wonder if they identify as dark. It was just fascinating to me. And I felt like she was trying to make a particular point, and she was like to the dark skinned people. So anyway, and then some of the men started talking, and they were like, well, they could identify with what she's saying about feeling the need to shrink or not allowing yourself self to shrink, even though sometimes people will feel uncomfortable with you being a big athletic Black man or a dark skinned Black man or whatever it is that makes them feel uncomfortable. And I remember I've talked a lot about noticing that in certain contexts, it's rare to hear when you encounter Black men, they rarely have like bass in their voice, like, yeah, they're like, yes, hello there. And, one guy spoke explicitly about taking the bass out of his voice in certain environments to try to let people know I'm not threatening. I'm a nice guy. You don't have to be scared of me, because he can sense and feel that they're afraid of him. And that's how he tries to manage it. Now, when I was outside talking to another guy, and he was a big Black guy. And he's like, I've never even felt that. And I was kind of surprised by that. I don't know if it has to do with his sensitivity or like just the circles that he's traveled in. Because I'm like, even to me, I wasn't like intimidated, because I like big Black guys, but he was a big Black guy. And I could imagine that in a lot of situations, people would feel intimidated by him and threatened by him. But he said he ain't never had that experience. So anyway, that was basically it. I was a little confused again when the panel started, because I thought it was going to be about the Blackness Project, and it wasn't. So I think, yeah, so that's it. I can't believe I've been talking about a half hour about this. I enjoyed the Blackness Project. I would recommend that you go see it. I'm going to see it again and actually watch it. Go to Scoville TV, use the code Cinetopia. We've been talking about supporting Black businesses. There's a couple young Black guys that started Scoville TV. They want to feature, or they feature and focus on Black independent films or independent films. He said he don't want to specifically say Black, but most of them are Black. So I don't know why we can't. Sometimes I don't I don't understand why. Why can't we just say Black? Is that crime? Today is the best day ever, and you are the greatest. Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Let me know if you see the Blackness Project and what you think, and let me know also if you've seen the Whiteness Project and what you thought. Peace, peace. Thank you. I see.